Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze the main tactical themes in Arsenal's comfortable 2-1 win over FC Zurich. So in today's video, first we're going to briefly discuss Arsenal's attacking structure, then we'll focus on their left-hand side and look at how Granit Xhaka played a key role, and lastly we'll shift to the right-hand side and see how Arsenal looked to open up avenues so Marquinhos could have an impact on the overall result. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have a 4-3-3 against a 4-2-3-1, and because Arsenal were dominant in terms of their territorial battle and the possession battle, we'll focus on how they were able to impose their will against the hosts. What you end up seeing is that in that midfield zone, it is 3v3, with Lokonga dealing with FC Zurich's attacking midfielder, and then their double pivot dealing with Xhaka and Fabio Vieira. So what we ended up seeing from Arsenal was that they did pivot between a few systems in terms of their overall build-up. At times, they did look like more of a 4-1-5, and that's where you ended up seeing Xhaka and Fabio Vieira push forward into advanced positions in between the lines, and Tierney and Tomiyasu were a bit narrow while Marquinhos and Martinelli hugged the touchline. Then they could shift to a 3-2-5, and that's where you'd see Xhaka dropping into that midfield zone to pick up the ball near Lokonga, and you'd have Tierney pushing forward down the touchline with Martinelli tucking in central in between the fullback and the center back gap. The other alternative for Arsenal in that zone would be to see Tierney moving into that midfield area, and that was an interesting tactical feat for Arsenal as he was putting himself in that position just ahead of the midfield bank, or at times in between the central midfielder and the wide player, and you'd have Xhaka pushing forward in towards that gap between the fullback and the center back, and Martinelli would be hugging the touchline. The other reason for Tierney to be in that zone was if you ended up seeing Arsenal shift into a 2-3-5, and that's where you had Tomiyasu and Tierney in that narrow half space position alongside Lokonga, and that would be to free up the passing lane in towards Martinelli and Marquinhos to limit the space that Lokonga had to cover in case FC Zurich looked to break in transition. If we stick down that left-hand side, the other alternative would be to have Tierney pushing forward ahead of that full-back center back gap, and then Xhaka dropping in towards the inside left position, but then you still see Arsenal in more of a 4-1-5. In terms of that left-hand side, there were no real surprises in terms of the variations and how they rotated. At times you'd have Tierney in that inside left position with Xhaka pushing forward and Martinelli hugging the touchline, or you could see Martinelli shifting into more of a central area and Tierney bombing forward down the left touchline and Xhaka holding a position in that inside left area. And then there were simply temporary situations where Arsenal looked like a 3-1-6, where you'd have Tierney hugging the touchline, Martinelli occupying Kamberi, and then Xhaka pushing forward into advanced positions from a central midfield area, leaving Lokonga to shield the back three. With the host dropping into two banks of four, Arsenal predominantly looked to shift into that 2-3-5 to help dominate the center of the pitch. With Tierney and Tomiyasu shifting in towards those narrow positions, now they're pulling away one of the wide players or potentially one of the central midfielders, and then you still have Fabio Vieira and Xhaka pushing high to look to attract the center backs towards them, but they can't step forward due to the presence of Nketiah. And then there were outlets to play out in towards the wide areas as the shape pulled that midfield bank into narrow positions. Xhaka was the key player on that left-hand side, and a lot of it was down to his forward runs in towards the penalty area and his impact in the final third. Yes, he was capable of offering a defensive impact. There was one particular moment where from a long throw, you could see Xhaka recovering his position from the opposing side's penalty area to make a run towards the halfway line to chase down the runner breaking in transition, and from there he was able to recover the ball and help Arsenal reignite their attack. However, there were a combination of traits that helped Xhaka get himself and his teammates into good positions. Like I said, those forward runs in towards the half spaces when Tierney or Martinelli were occupying the edge of the box or the wide areas was pivotal. In terms of his appreciation of space, he was finding the ball in between the lines and he was able to progress the play from those situations. And if that wasn't the case, he was dragging away markers or shifting laterally to the left or to the right in and around the final third to create space for himself to go towards goal and present a threat towards the opposing side's goalkeeper. And more importantly, as that game continued, he would push forward in towards the final third. And from those positions in the inside left or just ahead of the penalty area, Xhaka was consistently placing Martinelli in legitimate goal scoring positions situations, but the Brazilian was failing to increase Arsenal's lead. In this example, you witness Lukonga winning a loose ball from a clearance and focus on Xhaka's positioning. He ends up getting to the loose ball first, and now he looks to see Martinelli ahead of the fullback. That's where he identifies Martinelli making a run across the fullback to break him behind, and he instantly looks to scoop the ball over the back line into the path of Martinelli, placing him in a legitimate goal-scoring position, but from here he volleys a first-time effort over the net. In this example, you witness Xhaka dropping in towards the halfway circle to receive the ball from Tomiyasu, and focus on Tierney and Martinelli's movement. Tierney begins to jog beyond the right-sided midfielder in towards space between the lines, and as Xhaka carries the ball forward, that's where you see him calling for the ball in that zone. Xhaka does well to disguise a reverse pass between the midfield bank in towards the path of Tierney, and from here he receives the ball where he could square it to Fabio Vieira or look to play Nketiah in behind. However, he looks to carry the ball towards goal, and because he's left-footed, he has to push it in towards left half space, and from this position he fires a low effort at the keeper that he pushes away. And then there was one isolated situation in the second half where you see Xhaka's forward movement utilized as a decoy to get the ball towards Lukonga to switch the play of attack. You can see that Tierney has the ball on the touchline, and Xhaka's looking to make a forward run from a deep midfield position, and as he looks to push forward, he drags a marker with him, and as you can see, Tierney cuts across his marker, and Xhaka creates a space for Tierney to square the ball into the path of Lukonga that wasn't there if he remained stagnant. From there, Tierney could drop the ball off to Lukonga, and now pulls another midfielder within further distance to step towards the ball, and from there you witness now Xhaka and Fabio Vieira operating as decoys. Lukonga could switch the play out to an unmarked Tomiyasu in a narrow position, and from there now you could also see Fabio Vieira in that gap between the center back and the fullback, and Guerreiro now looking to step towards Tomiyasu late, and that's how Arsenal were able to cycle the ball out to Marquinhos to place him in a 1v1 to run at the back line, or simply drag markers towards him to pull the ball back to Tomiyasu so that he could create from an inside narrow position. In terms of Nketiah, there was no real significant tactical shift as he did operate in that all-rounder role that we do witness from Gabriel Jesus and we have seen from Lacazette in the past. You witness Nketiah dropping off in towards that midfield zone to serve as an outlet, and he was capable of receiving the ball, holding off pressure, linking with his teammates, and then spinning forward to help join the attack. And this was simply pivotal as it created an overload in that midfield area, and it helped Arsenal easily bypass FC Zurich's midfield bank. However, Arsenal's main threat stemmed down that right-hand side as they were looking to get Marquinhos into positions that he could run at the fullback and simply break in behind the FC Zurich backline. What we ended up witnessing was that Tomiyasu was often adopting a narrow position and dragging away Guerreiro, and then looking to play passes in around him to place Marquinhos in 1v1s with Aliti. Marquinhos was hugging the touchline and stretching the pitch, and Fabio Vieira was often pushed forward in the gap between the left back and the center back, or simply occupying the center back so Marquinhos could get on the ball. What we didn't witness from Fabio Vieira was that he wasn't looking to make runs in behind the fullback to receive the ball, and he was often looking to occupy the center back, and at times he would drift laterally into central areas to ensure that there were no players that could shift across to provide cover for the fullback. In the early stages of that game, Marquinhos was looking to receive the ball on the touchline and then cut onto his left foot, and from there he would have enough time to set himself to cut across Guerreiro even if he did come over for cover, as Fabio Vieira would occupy the left central midfielder or the center back, and from there Marquinhos was simply looking to pick out the runs of Nketiah, Xhaka, Tierney, or Martinelli looking to break in beyond to get onto the ball in beyond the back line. In terms of his individual battle with Aliti, he was capable of using his speed to get himself into legitimate goal scoring positions and goal side of the fullback or beyond him, and you witnessed that on several occasions. Initially, you see him making a run in beyond Aliti to break beyond the back line due to a pass from Tomiyasu beyond Guerreiro, and that forced the center back to cover for his fullback. You could see that Marquinhos' speed was too much for that back line, and he forced the center back into a desperate lunging slide tackle that resulted in a booking. And then there was another situation where Aliti is simply ball watching in that penalty area because Marquinhos is a bit wider, and when a cross comes in towards that zone, Marquinhos simply uses his speed to get across the fullback, and although he receives the ball in a legitimate goal scoring position, he takes a first time effort from that cross and he fires it over the net. However, the main tactical components to Marquinhos' success down that right hand side was simply using Tomiyasu and Fabio Vieira as decoys to get the Brazilian into 1v1s with the fullback. And from there, like I said, using his speed and then using his ability to cut onto his left foot to serve as a creator, ultimately shifted the game and helped Arsenal claim all 3 points. In the build-up to Arsenal's winner, you could witness Tomiyasu looking to receive the ball from Martinelli, but focus on Fabio Vieira's positioning. As that play develops, Marquinhos receives the ball where he can now run at Guerreiro, and you can see Fabio Vieira and Martinelli look to break towards the penalty area. Because Guerreiro doesn't step tight, Marquinhos has time to run towards him, and he locates the potential overload in that left half space as Tierney begins to run off his marker. He clips the ball into that zone, and now you can see the 2v1 ensuing, and the mistake that the defender makes is that he turns towards Nketiah, and that's where he loses him, and if the ball falls into the path of Nketiah or Tierney, they're placed in a legitimate goal-scoring position, and it falls to Nketiah, who can nod it across goal for Martinelli, but he beats the keeper from point-blank range. So as you can see, this was an extremely comfortable victory for Mikel Arteta's men, in which Granit Xhaka produced an all-round midfield performance from the left, whereas the away side's insistence to maximize Marquinhos' direct threat on the right proved crucial in claiming all 3 points.